The birthday cake had barely reached the center of the VIP table when 3 armed men burst into the restaurant, sending terrified guests diving beneath their chairs. In front of politicians, celebrities, and the city's wealthiest elite, they laughed as they shoved Roman Vescari, the man whispered to be the most feared crime boss in the city, out of his own birthday seat. Even the restaurant manager nervously begged him to leave before causing more trouble. His bodyguards were trapped, guns raised but unable to act, without risking innocent lives. Then, from the corner of the dining room, an exhausted plus-size waitress, holding her young son, quietly stepped forward. 8 seconds later, all 3 gunmen lay unconscious on the marble floor. No one could understand how an ordinary single mother had defeated armed attackers, until Roman caught sight of the faded military tattoo hidden beneath her sleeve, and the color drained from his face. The private dining hall of the Grand Aurelius had never looked more magnificent. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above polished marble floors, while a string quartet filled the room with soft classical music. Business leaders, city officials, and celebrities mingled effortlessly, pretending they were simply attending another lavish birthday celebration. Only a handful of guests knew the truth. Tonight wasn't merely the 63rd birthday of Roman Vescari. It was a public reminder that the man many feared, more than the police, was still alive. Roman sat quietly at the center of the VIP table, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Silver streaks had begun to overtake his dark hair, but his calm eyes still carried the weight of someone accustomed to giving orders that changed lives. Across the room, his longtime advisor, Luca Ferris, subtly scanned every entrance. "Everything's clear," Luca said through a concealed earpiece. Roman didn't even look at him. "It always is," he replied, "until it isn't." Nearby, Naomi Carter balanced 3 dinner plates on one arm while helping another waitress refill wine glasses. Her uniform was plain, her apron carried a few stains from an impossibly busy evening, and loose strands of brown hair had escaped her hurried ponytail. Most customers barely noticed her. She preferred it that way. At the edge of the kitchen stood 8-year-old Ethan, quietly coloring in a small notebook while waiting for his mother's shift to end. One of the chefs occasionally handed him a cookie, earning a grateful smile from the boy. For a brief moment, everything felt normal. Then, the enormous birthday cake rolled toward Roman's table. The guests applauded. Someone began singing. Roman reached for the knife. Boom! The restaurant's front doors slammed open so violently that the glass panels shattered across the marble entrance. 3 masked men carrying assault rifles stormed inside. Panic erupted instantly. Guests screamed. Wine glasses exploded across the floor. Several politicians dove beneath nearby tables. One gunman fired into the ceiling. The orchestra stopped mid-note. "No one moves," the tallest attacker shouted. Another walked directly to Roman's table before kicking the birthday cake onto the floor. Cream and shattered decorations splashed across Roman's expensive shoes. The gunman laughed. "So this is Roman Vescari?" The legend looked smaller in person. The 3rd attacker slowly circled behind Roman's chair. "I thought the city feared you." He leaned closer. "Looks like everyone was lying." Around the dining room, Roman's bodyguards discreetly reached beneath their jackets, but every angle was blocked by terrified civilians. One wrong shot would turn innocent people into casualties. They couldn't fire. Harold Whitmore, the restaurant manager, hurried toward the VIP section with sweat pouring down his face. He wasn't looking at the attackers. He was looking at Roman. "Mr. Vescari," he whispered nervously, "I'm terribly sorry, but perhaps it would be best if you left." Roman stared at him. "You want me to leave?" Harold swallowed hard. "We cannot risk frightening our guests any further." The room became painfully quiet. Several diners nodded in agreement. Others slowly pushed their chairs farther away from Roman's table, silently blaming him for the chaos surrounding them. The masked men burst into laughter. One grabbed Roman by the collar and forced him halfway out of his chair. So much for the mighty king. Near the kitchen entrance, Ethan gasped. "Mom." Naomi turned, her eyes locked onto the terrified boy. Every sound around her suddenly disappeared. Years of discipline she had buried long ago surged back in an instant. Without saying a word, she guided Ethan behind an overturned serving station. "Stay here," she whispered. "No matter what happens, don't come out." She reached for the nearest object, a heavy stainless steel serving tray. The first attacker charged toward her with the butt of his rifle raised. One step, one swing. The tray crashed into his jaw with a sickening metallic crack. Before anyone could react, Naomi snatched a boiling pot of lobster bisque from the service counter and hurled it into the second attacker's face. His scream echoed through the restaurant. The third gunman spun and fired. Naomi moved before the trigger finished breaking. She trapped his weapon arm, twisted sharply, drove her elbow into his throat, then slammed him onto the marble floor with practiced precision. 8 seconds. 3 armed men lay unconscious. No one breathed. No one spoke. Roman slowly stood. His eyes weren't on the defeated attackers. They were fixed on the faded military tattoo, briefly exposed beneath Naomi's rolled-up sleeve as she pulled Ethan into her arms. Recognition struck him like a bullet. He hadn't seen that insignia in over 20 years. His lips parted almost involuntarily. "Gabriel!" The name escaped as little more than a whisper. Naomi looked up. For the first time, their eyes met. The silence inside the Grand Aurelius lasted only a few seconds before chaos erupted again. Police sirens wailed outside as frightened guests rushed toward the exits. Officers stormed into the restaurant, securing the 3 unconscious gunmen, while paramedics treated several injured diners. Naomi Carter wanted no part of the attention. She crouched beside Ethan, brushing broken glass from his jacket before wrapping him in a tight embrace. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. The boy shook his head. "I'm okay, Mom." "You were amazing." Naomi forced a small smile. "No, sweetheart. I was just lucky." She knew that was a lie. Luck had nothing to do with it. Years of military training had taken over the instant Ethan was threatened. Instincts she had spent nearly a decade trying to bury had returned without hesitation. Across the room, Roman Vescari remained standing beside the ruined birthday table. While detectives questioned witnesses, his eyes never drifted far from Naomi. "Luca," he said quietly. His trusted advisor stepped closer. "Yes, sir. I want everything." Luca frowned. "Everything. The woman's name, where she lives, where she worked, who trained her, and why she's carrying Gabriel Carter's insignia." Luca's expression changed immediately. "You knew her father," Roman answered without taking his eyes off Naomi. "He saved my life." Those 4 words stunned Luca. In over 25 years, Roman had never spoken about owing anyone a debt. Naomi noticed the 2 men watching her. She immediately looked away. She had recognized Roman's face the moment the attackers mentioned his name. Everyone in the city had heard rumors about Roman Vescari. Some called him a businessman. Others called him a criminal emperor. To Naomi, he was simply the man who had broken a promise. She picked up Ethan's backpack and headed toward the employee exit before anyone could stop her. Outside, cold night air greeted them. "You didn't finish work," Ethan said as they walked toward the bus stop. "I think my boss will understand." "You fought those bad guys like a superhero." Naomi laughed quietly. No heroes wear orthopedic shoes. That made Ethan grin. For a brief moment, they were simply a mother and her son walking home together. They lived in a modest apartment on the west side of the city. The elevator had been broken for weeks, forcing Naomi to climb 4 flights of stairs every evening after work. Inside, the apartment was small but spotless. Family photographs covered one wall. Only one picture remained, turned face down. Naomi carefully lifted it. The faded photograph showed a younger Gabriel Carter standing beside several soldiers. A much younger Roman Vescari stood among them. Both men were smiling. Naomi stared at the image for several seconds before placing it back exactly as she had found it. "Not tonight," she whispered. Across town, Roman had returned to his private estate. His birthday celebration had ended in humiliation. The newspapers would have plenty to write tomorrow. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about one thing: Gabriel's daughter. He entered his study alone. Inside an old wooden cabinet rested a weathered military box that had not been opened in decades. Roman slowly unlocked it. Inside were medals, a faded compass, several handwritten letters, and one photograph, the same photograph Naomi had just looked at. Roman picked it up carefully. "Gabriel," he murmured, "you told me your family would never need my protection. I believed you." His voice grew quieter. "I should have known better." A knock interrupted his thoughts. Luca entered, carrying a thin folder. "I found her." Roman looked up immediately. Naomi Carter, 36 years old. Former Army Special Operations. Roman remained silent. Decorated multiple times. Expert in close quarters combat, defensive tactics, and hostage rescue. Luca turned another page. She resigned 9 years ago. Why? There was no disciplinary action, no criminal record, no medical discharge. She simply disappeared. Roman frowned. "People like her don't simply disappear." Luca nodded. "There's more." He slid a photograph across the desk. Naomi was leaving a neighborhood grocery store with Ethan. Roman studied the little boy. "Her son?" "Yes." "Father?" "We can't find one." Roman narrowed his eyes. "For someone who supposedly lives an ordinary life, she's remarkably difficult to investigate." Before Luca could continue, Roman's private phone vibrated. Only 3 people possessed that number. He answered immediately. A distorted electronic voice spoke first. "Happy birthday, Roman." His expression hardened. "Who is this?" The restaurant was only a rehearsal. Roman's grip tightened around the phone. "What do you want?" A soft laugh echoed through the speaker. "We weren't testing your security. We were testing hers." Roman's heartbeat slowed. Hers, the woman, and the boy. The call disconnected. For several long seconds, neither Roman nor Luca spoke. Finally, Roman stood so abruptly that his chair crashed backward. "Get every available team into the field." Luca hesitated. "To protect Naomi?" Roman looked toward the city lights beyond his window. "No." His voice carried a certainty that chilled the room. "Someone else already knows who she is. And if I'm right, they're not coming after me anymore. They're coming for her son." Naomi barely slept that night. Years of training had taught her one painful lesson. Men who failed rarely accepted defeat. They regrouped, learned from their mistakes, and returned when their target felt safe again. Before sunrise, she was already standing beside the kitchen window, watching the quiet street below, while coffee cooled untouched in her hands. Ethan wandered into the room, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mom?" She forced herself to smile. "Breakfast first. You've been awake all night, haven't you?" Naomi didn't answer. Instead, she brushed his hair back and set a plate of pancakes in front of him. As Ethan ate, she discreetly checked the reflection in the apartment window. A black sedan had been parked across the street for almost 20 minutes. It wasn't there yesterday. Across town, Roman's intelligence network was moving faster than ever. Luca entered the operations room carrying a tablet. "We identified the 3 attackers." Roman looked up. "They're freelancers. No criminal records. No gang affiliations. They were hired through intermediaries. Roman frowned. Disposable soldiers. Exactly. Luca enlarged a surveillance image captured outside the restaurant. More importantly, he pointed toward another vehicle, parked several blocks away during the attack. This van never entered the restaurant. It simply watched. Roman's expression darkened. So the gunmen weren't the real operation. Luca nodded. They were bait. Roman slowly pieced the puzzle together. The humiliation, the public spectacle, the insults. None of it had been designed to kill him. It had been designed to force one specific person to reveal herself. Naomi. Someone had known an ordinary waitress would intervene. Someone had known exactly how she would fight. Roman spoke quietly. They wanted confirmation. Luca finished the sentence. And now they've got it. At precisely 10 o'clock, Naomi walked Ethan to school. She never noticed the motorcycle following at a distance. She never saw the man inside a nearby coffee shop taking photographs. But she felt something. That familiar pressure between her shoulder blades. Someone was watching. She knelt beside Ethan before he entered the school. Remember what we practiced? The boy nodded. If anyone says you know them, I don't go. If someone tells you Mom is hurt, I wait for your code word. Naomi smiled faintly. What is it? Blue Falcon. She kissed his forehead. Good. As Ethan disappeared into the school building, Naomi remained outside another minute, scanning rooftops, parked cars, and passing pedestrians. Nothing obvious, which worried her even more. Inside an abandoned warehouse across the river, Victor Soren watched the surveillance feed with satisfaction. Unlike Roman, Victor preferred precision over fear. Every move was calculated. Every sacrifice had a purpose. One of his lieutenants approached. The test succeeded. Victor smiled. I know. The woman reacted exactly as predicted. The combat profile matches Gabriel Carter's training records almost perfectly. Another lieutenant frowned. But why not eliminate her now? Victor shook his head. Because she isn't what we need. He tapped a photograph lying on the table. It showed Ethan leaving school. The boy is. The room fell silent. The DNA confirmation came this morning. Victor's smile slowly widened. So the rumors were true. He really is carrying it. No one asked what it was. Only Victor knew. And that secret was worth millions. Late that afternoon, Naomi finished another shift at the restaurant. Harold awkwardly approached her near the employee lockers. I'm sorry about yesterday. She simply nodded. I understand. No. Harold lowered his eyes. I judged the wrong person. Naomi offered a tired smile. Most people do. Outside, the sky had turned gray. Rain began falling as she walked toward Ethan's school. Halfway there, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? A frightened female voice cried through the speaker. Mrs. Carter? This is Ethan's teacher. He never got on the school bus. Naomi stopped walking. What? We thought you picked him up. The world seemed to freeze. No. I've been at work. There must be some mistake. We've searched everywhere. He disappeared 20 minutes ago. The call ended. Naomi's pulse exploded. She ran, ignoring traffic, ignoring red lights, ignoring the rain soaking through her clothes. Every instinct screamed the same terrifying truth. They had come back. At that exact moment, Roman's armored sedan screeched to a halt outside his estate. One of his surveillance teams rushed toward him. Sir! Roman stepped out immediately. What happened? The guard handed him a tablet, displaying live traffic cameras. A grainy image showed a child matching Ethan's description, being forced into a dark SUV. Roman recognized the location instantly. They're moving east. Luca looked at the timestamp. We still have a chance. Roman climbed back into the vehicle. No. His voice carried an urgency Luca had never heard before. If Victor Soren has the boy, we're already running out of time. The convoy roared into traffic. Miles away, Naomi sprinted through the rain toward the last place anyone had seen her son. She had no idea that the most dangerous man in the city was racing toward the very same destination. Nor did she know that, for the first time in years, Roman Vescari and Victor Soren were about to wage a war over a child whose true value neither of them fully understood. Rain hammered the streets as Naomi reached Ethan's elementary school. Police cruisers flashed outside the entrance, but she ignored the officers calling after her. She rushed through the gate, searching every classroom, every hallway, every corner of the playground. Nothing. A security guard handed her a tablet. This is from the parking lot camera. The footage showed Ethan leaving the school building with another child before a woman wearing a school volunteer badge approached him. She smiled, knelt to his height, and said something. Ethan hesitated. Then the woman whispered 2 words. Blue Falcon. Naomi's blood turned to ice. Only 2 people knew that emergency code. She and Ethan. Someone had been listening. Someone had been watching them for a long time. Before Naomi could replay the video, tires screeched outside. 3 black SUVs stopped in front of the school. Roman Vescari stepped out, followed by Luca and several armed bodyguards. Naomi stormed toward him. This is your fault. Roman didn't deny it. I know. She grabbed his jacket. If your enemies hadn't come after you. They didn't. Roman interrupted quietly. They came for your son. Naomi's eyes narrowed. What do you know? For a brief second, Naomi saw something unexpected in his eyes. Not power, not arrogance. Regret. Luca hurried over with fresh intelligence. We found the SUV. Where? It was abandoned near Pier 9. Roman turned to Naomi. If Victor Soren took Ethan, every minute matters. Naomi froze. You know Victor? Roman's silence answered the question. She hated what she was about to do, but she had no better option. Fine. Her voice was cold. We work together. But the second my son is safe, we're done. Roman nodded. Agreed. The convoy reached the abandoned harbor less than 15 minutes later. Shipping containers formed narrow corridors beneath towering cranes. Rain and darkness reduced visibility to only a few yards. Roman motioned for his men to split into teams. Naomi stopped him. No. Roman looked at her. They're expecting your people. She pointed toward muddy tire tracks. They wanted us to follow. Luca frowned. You can tell that from footprints. Naomi shook her head. They're too obvious. Professionals hide their trail. They're showing us this one. Roman slowly smiled. For someone who claims to be out of the game, you still see everything. She ignored the compliment. A sudden metallic click echoed nearby. Naomi reacted instantly. Down! Everyone dropped as automatic gunfire tore through the containers above them. Bullets showered sparks across steel walls. It's an ambush, Luca shouted. Roman's men returned fire. The harbor erupted into chaos. 2 attackers rushed from behind stacked cargo crates. Naomi grabbed a loose chain hanging from a crane hook, swung it across the narrow passage, and knocked both men off their feet before they could fire. Roman drew his pistol with surprising speed. Despite his age, every shot was controlled. One attacker fell. Another retreated behind cover. Naomi noticed movement on the roof of a nearby warehouse. Sniper! Roman looked up, just as the rifle flashed. Without thinking, Naomi slammed into him. The bullet shattered the concrete where his head had been seconds earlier. Roman stared at her. You just saved my life. I saved my son's only lead. She stood and reloaded a pistol she had taken from one of the attackers. "Don't confuse the two." A small smile crossed Roman's face. "You sound exactly like your father." Naomi's expression hardened instantly. "Don't you dare talk about him." Before Roman could answer, a loud engine roared through the harbor. A black armored truck burst from the warehouse doors. Its rear cargo door stood open. For only a split second, Naomi saw Ethan inside. "Mom!" The truck accelerated toward the exit. Naomi sprinted after it. Roman climbed into his SUV. "Go!" The chase exploded onto rain-soaked streets. Victor's convoy weaved through traffic, while Roman's drivers stayed close behind. Naomi leaned halfway out the passenger window, firing carefully at the kidnappers' tires. One vehicle spun into a guardrail. Another crashed into a parked delivery van. But the armored truck continued forward. Suddenly, its rear doors opened again. A masked gunman pushed a small backpack onto the road. Naomi recognized it instantly. Ethan's school bag. Roman ordered the convoy to stop. Naomi jumped out and snatched it from the pavement. Inside was Ethan's sketchbook. A single page had been torn out. Folded in its place was a handwritten note. Roman unfolded it. Only one sentence appeared. "If you want the boy alive, bring Naomi Carter to Gabriel's chapel alone. No signature. No demands for money. No mention of Roman." Naomi slowly looked toward the distant hills where the abandoned military chapel stood. She hadn't been there since the day her father was buried. For the first time, she realized this had never been just another kidnapping. Someone wasn't simply hunting Ethan. Someone was using him to bring her home. The abandoned chapel stood alone on a windswept hill overlooking the city. Years ago, soldiers had gathered there to honor the fallen. Now, broken stained-glass windows rattled in the cold night wind, and ivy climbed across cracked stone walls. Naomi had not returned since her father's funeral. She never wanted to. Roman stopped beside her as they looked toward the dark building. "This is where Gabriel asked to be buried," he said quietly. Naomi didn't look at him. "You don't get to say his name." Roman accepted the rebuke. "I deserve that." She turned, anger burning in her eyes. "No, you deserve far worse." Before Roman could answer, Luca approached with a pair of binoculars. Multiple armed guards. Victor's men? Luca nodded. At least 20. Naomi took the binoculars and scanned the chapel grounds. Searchlights. Motion sensors. 2 snipers on the bell tower. "It isn't a negotiation," she said. "It's an execution." Roman remained calm. "Then we'll change the ending." Naomi laughed bitterly. "You still think this is one of your business deals?" "No." She finally looked directly at him. "This is the bill that's finally come due." Roman knew exactly what she meant. Years earlier, long before Roman became the most feared man in the city, he had been cornered during a failed operation near the northern border. Outnumbered and bleeding, he had expected to die. Then Gabriel Carter appeared. A decorated special operations officer, Gabriel had ignored direct orders to leave Roman behind. Instead, he carried the wounded man through enemy fire, saving his life at the cost of his own military career. During the long journey to safety, Roman had made a promise. "If you ever need me, I'll protect your family with my life." Gabriel had smiled. "I hope I never have to ask." 3 years later, Gabriel died during another mission. Roman received the news. He intended to visit Gabriel's wife and daughter, but power came faster than grief. One war became another. One empire demanded another sacrifice. Days became months. Months became years. The promise was forgotten, until now. Naomi's voice cut through the silence. "My father waited for you." Roman lowered his head. "I know. He believed a man was only as good as his word." "I know. When he died, my mother had nothing." Roman closed his eyes. I know. We lost our home. My mother worked 3 jobs. She died before she was 50. Naomi's voice trembled for the first time. I joined the army because there was no one else to feed us. Roman said nothing. There was nothing he could say. Every accusation was true. I didn't hate you because you were a criminal, Naomi whispered. I hated you because my father believed you were an honorable man. And you proved him wrong. Roman inhaled slowly. I failed him. You abandoned us. I did. And now you expect forgiveness. No. His answer came without hesitation. I expect judgment. Before Naomi could respond, loud applause echoed through the